Okay, so welcome to today's reflection. I want to talk today a little bit about lockdowns and boarding school syndrome. And this follows on from a talk by Schaverien a couple of weeks ago at a boarding school conference that I attended, which was really, really great. So just talk about that. So I went to a boarding school conference 2 weeks ago, and it was on a Saturday. And in the morning there was Joy Schaverien and also Richard Beard, the author of Sad Little Men, who were talking. And Joy Shaverin's talk was all about kind of the link between lockdowns and boarding school syndrome. And I just loved how she really outlined it, and it made so much sense to me. And it's something which had been percolating in my mind over the last couple of years. And she was saying that over the past couple of years since lockdown began, a lot of ex-boarders have really struggled in lockdowns. And she was just sharing why she thought that was. And she talks about the ABC and the D of boarding school syndrome. So that's A, abandonment, B, bereavement, C, captivity, and D, dissociation. And it's interesting, I find, it's like I went to a party, a friend's 50th on the weekend, and I share with people what my work is, working with ex-boarders. And most people haven't been to boarding school. Maybe their parents have, but most people feel, well, it's nothing to do with me. I didn't go to boarding school. And what I often do is I come back to this ABC of boarding school and I relate it to, how has this last couple of years been for you as in your life? And they'll say, well, we were in lockdown. And I say, yeah. And so Joy Schaverien points this out, that lockdown was captivity. Lockdown was captivity. And what I see in my own work is that, Peter Levine talks about this, that when we do not deal with our internal issues, and I love what my wife said a few weeks ago. She said, people who haven't done their work post boarding school are still boarders. They're not ex-boarders. They're still at boarding school. They still have those old programs running, and you can see that in the leaders, certainly in the UK. And so when we do not do our inner work, then what happens is we project that onto the world. So the ABC, the abandonment, the bereavement, the captivity, that was, for me, that's been projected onto the world. The leaders have not done their inner work. Joy Schaverien saying last year was like captivity. Bereavement this last year. You think we felt bereaved. We were cut off from our families. Again, someone who that was their experience of childhood. That's something they have not healed. Is that right? You can't see your parents now. Nick Duffel again says that the working classes, it's like the wounded little child of the upper classes is projected onto the working classes. Over the last couple of years, the upper classes have had very different rules to everybody else. So this was some of the things she kind of spoke about, not so much, but saying why we really struggled, because the last couple of years were very much, like being at school on one level. Captivity, we couldn't see our family, abandoned. She said the loss of love. Suddenly, in some instances, if you were in a relationship, you weren't living together, you couldn't see your partner. And I take this work a step further, and I feel that, when people say to me, well, I didn't go to boarding school, I'll say, look, it has affected you these last couple of years because these leaders have not done their inner work. They project that pain. They have projected that onto the rest of the world. Again, Peter Levine saying, if you were hit as a child, you're more likely to hit someone else when you're an adult. If you were sexually abused as a child, you often find that those sexual abusers, the people who are in prison now, they were sexually abused as a child. And so for me, this is really key. It's like, wow, lockdown, boarding school syndrome. It's like, wow, the link there, it is profound. So I just found her talk to be, fascinating, and there was other levels of it as well. Things like she said it was so much like school, lockdown. We couldn't go certain places. It's like you couldn't go, you could only go out for an hour. I mean, that's just like school. It's like, yeah, you can't go here. You can't go to the swimming pool. Again, so for me, if we look at this on a trauma level, the people in charge, this is unconscious for them. They've put these rules in thinking it's going to make people safe. Although the science, most of it, there was a question whether this was right or wrong, but after a few months, it was clear that, right, lockdowns don't work. But we kept doing them. So, yeah, I just find that this is fascinating when we link it into trauma. So anything else? No, I think that's basically it. Just to say that, to link that in, lockdown, boarding school syndrome, that not only do ex-boarders struggle because it reminds us of our trauma, but also those who weren't at boarding school, what they've been asked to do over these last couple of years, really links in. If this is just a theory, a hypothetical theory that, Joy Schaverien is talking differently about than I am, but I'm saying that, when we do not process our inner trauma, then we project it out onto the world. And so, yeah, just some ideas and thoughts there. So please do, if this goes, yeah, that's right. Oh no, that doesn't sit with me at all. Please do let me know. So yeah, I did a podcast today with Rod Boothroyd. And Rod Boothroyd's the author of King Warrior, a Warrior Magician Lover King. And we talked about the warrior archetype, part of us that puts boundaries in, gets done, agency in the world. That's fascinating, especially for boarding school, because we're not taught at school what it is to be a mature man or a mature woman. We're just taught how to be children in adults' bodies, because we're guided by the children. So I think it's really important, and over the coming months we're going to be exploring and going into more depth around that. So yeah, I hope you are well, and look forward to speaking soon. Bye for now.